Happy Tuesday. It is Tuesday, November 8th, the 312th day of the year, and there are 53 days left in 2022. Welcome to another edition of Tuesdays with Thom. Finally, the voting day is here. So go vote. There's no good or legitimate reason not to vote. There's so many ways to vote. If you're sick, you can still vote. If you don't have transportation, you can still vote. It just takes a little effort. Who do you vote for? I don't care. Just vote your conscience. I grew up voting for the person I thought would do the most good for the majority, of us all. I still vote that way. Many people vote for selfish reasons, their own economic gain, or to deny the rights and wonders of America that they enjoy, but would deny those rights and privileges to others. Today, people are more apt to vote against somebody or against some idea that may not even be true, rather than vote for somebody or something. Social votes today are being used to run other people's lives. Today, we'll have some politicians and newbies running for office, not only with very limited experience and with little to no knowledge of the issues, but they're pledged to a party to do what they're told. Whatever and however you feel, just go vote. If the people I vote for are all losers, it's okay. It's like a football game. They'll do it again next time. Hopefully, I'll be here to vote again. I'll be okay. You will too, if you vote. So our G-list guest today is Ike Jones of the War Report. Dubbed as an Auburn sports talk from the fans' perspective, the War Rapport was created to be for the people who truly love Auburn sports. It's inclusive, interactive, and made to bring fans of all kinds to the table for a discussion. I've been on that show. It's a great show, and we look forward to having Ike Jones with us this morning. We look forward to that conversation. This edition of Tuesdays with Thom, of course, is sponsored by our partners, the Best Girl Consulting Firm. Best Girl has been providing customized solutions to executive issues for 34 years. Let's hear it from Best Girl.
Best Girl is a consulting firm that provides customized leadership, access and inclusion, public relations, communications, and organizational consulting services. Clients include Fortune 500 companies, utilities, higher education institutions, small businesses, and associations. Best Girl's team of consultants, led by Joyce Gilly-Gossam, Emily Hedrick, and Sean Jones, partners with business and education clients to promote organizational effectiveness, communication, motivation, and leadership, with always an impact on the bottom line. Best Girl's customized consulting services include strategic planning, corporate communication, executive coaching, fundraising, and economic development.
Creates the solution that fits your needs. So let's go to the round table to talk to Barbara Wallace Edwards and Michael Walker. Good morning, Barbara Wallace Edwards. How you doing?
Good morning, Thom. I'm doing well, thank you.
How are you this morning?
Doing pretty good. Still dealing with some sinus and allergy issues, but otherwise I'm doing fine.
Did you vote yet?
No, sir, haven't yet. But as soon as we get off the show today, that's my next objective.
Great. Good deal.
Yes.
Good
yes.
deal. So tell me, what's happening with you?
Well, Thom, I want to remind everyone of the James Owens Foundation Scholarship Breakfast that's going to take place this Saturday in Auburn, Alabama, where we will be honoring and recognizing all of the former athletes from the 1970s that attended Auburn University, and yourself included. I know that you and Harvey Glantz are our keynote speakers, and we're delighted to have you all back. And hopefully a lot of guys that probably had never come back to Auburn since they left will be returning to the Plains. I think there's about 30, 40 former athletes from the 70s that are planning to be there, both male and female.
I think that's the beautiful thing about it is these guys were there, and we're calling them the forgotten ones because they're not on any Hall of Fame or on any walls or anything, and most of them will tell you they were pretty limited in what they could accomplish.
Right.
We always laugh. My last year, Cedric McIntyre and Mitzi Jackson were on the team. We were the three blacks on the team. That was the most we'd ever had with three blacks.
Wow.
And we'd always joke about them running the ball down to the 1 yard line, and then they'd be taken out so that somebody else could run the touchdown. and they were told well, you tired, so let me
Yeah.
let this other guy run the ball. He said,
And
Coach,
that's
I
so
ain't
sad,
that
Tom.
tired. I
I
can run one
know.
more yard.
Yeah. That's just so sad. But that was the lives that you all lived, and you're right. You all are the forgotten ones. So
Yeah,
I'm excited that the James Owens Foundation is taking the lead and will be recognizing and honoring all of you guys and ladies who um, were there. And
well, that's a good point. Why don't you talk about that?
there will be the first Black female scholarship athlete at Auburn University was Wendell Merritt, and she's going to be returning as well. She received her scholarship, I think, in 1977, and came to Auburn. So she will be attending the event. And they're trying to get in touch with even the first Black female cheerleader. Um, so I think there's going to be quite a few individuals who, again, probably have never come back to Auburn for anything. I don't think I've been coming back to Auburn for quite some time to events, and I haven't seen Wendell since I graduated in 1979.
Wow. Well, that's it's interesting, and I think it's great. And I will say this: there is support from several members of the Board of Trustees.
Yes.
There has been support for this from the president's office.
Yes.
There has been support from athletics,
Mm-hmm.
and it's something that started with the James Owens Foundation, and it continues to grow. And of course, and the James Owens Foundation is run by his wife, James's wife, Gloria Owens,
Yes.
and who will be on the show, I think, next week.
I think that's right.
We're really looking forward to her, and just proud that 2 years ago there was a smaller version of this event,
Mm-hmm.
and guys came back, and there were guys like Gary Redding and Albert
Yes.
Johnson, who were
Yes.
great basketball players who had never been back to the university. And why had they never been back? Well, maybe their experience wasn't as positive as it could be.
Right.
That was a pretty good political response.
I think that's very political. Great response. But I will, of course, be attending the event, and I hope to bring plenty of pictures back to share with our audience on next week.
Well, I was going to ask you if you were going to quote cover it. So
yes, I will.
Okay, let's get Michael on. I was going to say Michael O'Neill. Michael Walker. I almost called you Michael O'Neill. Good morning.
Michael O'Neill and I look a lot alike.
Yeah, you do. How you doing?
I'm doing well, TG. How are you this morning?
I'm doing great, man. I can't complain.
Good morning, Barbara.
Good morning, Michael.
Great.
So your take on Auburn's last game and Cadillac stepping in as the interim coach?
Well, I will say that they played inspired football. I saw them playing very enthusiastically. I would even go as far to say that they played as if they believed they could win the game. And you saw that type of effort.
And they had not been playing like that before?
Well, you didn't see it from the body language,
okay.
And you can tell when someone is doing their all or playing their best or giving, back when the coach always say, I want 110% out of you and stuff like that. You could see that with this team last Saturday night. And there were indications that they could win that football game. Even though they fell behind 21-0, I think it was, there was no quit, and they just continued to play and came back and took the lead several times. I just have to say that I don't know how far, and I was trying to determine in my mind, was this adrenaline or was it real? Because, sometimes when you play in a game or something like that, you can operate off of adrenaline. And then when the adrenaline goes away, you crash. So I'm hoping that they can carry this over this week coming up.
I think they will. I think there's, when you talk about, I can go back and talk about how we never lost a home game. Well, it was the same plays when we went on the road. It was the same people,
Mhm.
but there was this whole thing of no, you can't come here and win.
Mhm.
And I think there was some of that uh, with in terms of the effort that they gave.
Right.
They gave an effort that we hadn't seen.
Yes. And I have to say this, that what impressed me most about Cadillac was that whenever the players made a mistake, he didn't get down on them. He immediately kept it up on a
Yes.
positive note,
Yes.
and didn't allow them to wallow in their mistake and stuff, because he went right to them and pumped them up. So I think that was very good for them. And it's sometimes when you play with a coach, you feel like if you make a mistake, he's going to pull you out.
Right.
Okay. And then that causes you to tense up and get tight
Mhm.
and not play yourself. I didn't see that in this game. I didn't see them worrying about mistakes that they made. So they were just going out and
So
balling.
you can't play scared.
Right.
Right.
You can't play that if I do this, then he's going to take me out.
Right.
And I may not get back in. So
Yeah.
generally, and I think we've talked about this, when you play not to lose, you lose.
Right.
You have to play to win.
Man,
And
yes.
so what did you guys think about the job Cadillac did?
I think he did an excellent job, and not just Cadillac. He's given credit to all of the supporting um, coaching staff as well. There are a lot of people that were in a lot of different new coaching positions for them. So Kendall Simmons came on and took on a leading role, and Zach Etheridge, Will Friend, was doing something a little bit different. So I think they all did an excellent job. But again, kudos to Cadillac because he was their leader, and he was the one I think helped make some of those decisions about what positions they would hold on the team. So yeah, I think he did an excellent job.
I can concur. I have to say that I think it's a small sample size in order to judge Cadillac objectively.
Mhm.
But I will say, given the time constraints and what they were faced with from Monday afternoon when they learned of Harsin's firing, and then having maybe 3 days, because then you got to travel a day to
Right.
really pull it all together.
Yeah.
And so given that, I think he displayed some very good leadership skills, and more importantly, putting people, and I'm talking staff, in a position where they could accomplish the most, in other
Right.
words.
Right.
Like Kendall Simmons.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that's a no-brainer. Kendall Simmons
Absolutely.
played on the offensive line at Auburn. He played for the Steelers. He won world championship. Why the heck you don't have him coaching on the offensive line beats me, but you have him sitting up as an analyst.
Right.
So, to bring him out there, because these kids can learn from his experience playing for the Steelers. Come on, man. So, and then taking Ike Hilliard and marrying him with Will Friend
Yes, that was big.
to do offensive play calling. Okay. So that's what I noticed most, and what I like to judge him on is that. I think it would be unfair for us to try to judge him on just that game and not really have an opportunity to prepare. But I think from a leadership standpoint and being able to get the guys motivated to play, he did an excellent job.
I think it can maybe be summed up with that saying of sometimes you win when you lose.
That's
Right.
And
Right.
they did not win the game,
Mhm.
but they won in terms of going forward, in terms of program, in terms of the crowd,
Yes.
who I think will be more energized. Won't be leaving before the third quarter's over.
Right. I've even heard from some of the fans and alumni say that they don't have tickets for the game on Saturday, but they're coming. They're going to make Tiger Walk the biggest it's ever been because they want the coach and the players to see that they support them. So that's good.
Yeah, that's great. Well, it's good. I mean, you play and you have those memories for the rest of your life.
Mhm.
And as positive as they can be, um, that's what you really want out of it.
And, and I want to say this. They had asked Mike Leach earlier before playing Auburn about the team, and he said they have some good players over there. There are players on that team that everybody in the SEC wanted, and they went to Auburn. That should tell you something. And this narrative that has been floating around out there that Auburn doesn't have players with talent, I think you can see that if you have the right leadership in place and the right utilization, they do have talent. Because,
Right.
This is, when you think about it, this is just the same team we had last year that we got blown out
Right.
with Mississippi State for the most part, with a few different moving parts. But then we go into Starkville and take it to overtime and had two, and we're ahead in the closing minutes a couple times. So I don't know so much if there's a talent deficit. I know there is a lack of depth. But as far as talent, I'm not so sure that deficit is as wide as everybody says it is. I think it's a lack of utilization.
And you may be able to you may have time to put in just a couple of wrinkles
Mhm.
that would, because when you're the assistant coach, you see a lot of things and you say, God, we could do this, we could do this. But if the head coach and the coordinators aren't on that page, then that stuff doesn't happen.
Right.
And so I think they've had time now to maybe throw a couple wrinkles in there that will help Robbie be able to get off the ball, to
Right.
be able to throw the ball downfield, to be able to throw the ball with a little more touch on it and not be running for his life the whole game. I mean, if you look at, I don't know if you guys saw, and I just saw the highlights from the Chicago Bears game, and the quarterback that was at Ohio State, I can't think of his name.
Justin Fields.
And if you look at that game last night with the quarterback for the Ravens, they run that ball a lot. I think one of them had 170 yards rushing, and but there's always the threat of the pass.
Right.
They don't just take off running. There's a they run within the structure of the offense, and so I think, and obviously Robbie is a good runner, so maybe we can use that so that he isn't just running for his life.
Right.
He's running for a specific purpose to get. So,
well, in your
thoughts.
example of that last night with Lamar Jackson, he had made a run, I think, on a previous play or what have you, and they lined back up and they rolled him to the right, and everybody rolled right with him, and everybody thought he was running. He looked like a tailback running a tall sweep,
right?
And he pulled up and threw the ball in to a receiver for a touchdown,
right?
And I see that's a play that would work well with Robbie because he's such an athletic quarterback, But that's to your point, Tom, what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. So let's see. Today is voting day, politics day. Any comments, political comments? I'm assuming, I know you both voted, so I ain't got to ask you that.
Well, Tom, let me say this. Yes, I voted the very first day of early voting. I wanted to get it out of the way. And I'll just say here in Georgia, things have gotten really, really tight in the Senate race. And what I mean by that, there have been some of the last polls showing Herschel with a 1-point lead over Senator Warnock, which is not surprising. I started hearing that about a week or so ago that they thought he could win. I still think it's going to be a runoff because in Georgia, you have to have 50 plus 1. And this last poll is 47-46, Walker over Warnock. So we have to see what today brings from that standpoint. It's going to be pretty interesting. The governor is comfortably ahead right now. They show him 52-46. So that I wouldn't be surprised if that doesn't expand and grow He's done a very good job here. The rest of it is like a toss up. We'll have to wait and see. But I voted. Yeah.
Okay. You got some? You getting ready to say something else?
Well, one other thing I want to bring up the FBI scandal with the NCAA from 5 years ago, because one of our alumni, Chuck Person, was caught up into that. His life was ruined. And last week, this Independent Accountability Resolution Panel, which was chaired by a guy named David Bennick, came out and said that they found that Adidas wasn't paying teenage basketball players to go to Louisville or any other school for the benefit of that school or the coaches. They were just really trying to promote their shoes. Mm-hmm. And so now you have 10 people that went to jail.
Mm-hmm.
And poor Chuck, he lost his career, lost his family, financially ruined. And even with all of the wiretapping and all the conversations, they found out it was nothing there. And I think that this guy says it was overblown, but I think it was overblown because they got the FBI involved.
Right.
I never even figured out why the FBI needed to be involved in the first place if it was an NCAA investigation. Mm-hmm. And so now Louisville's not really going to get hardly anything.
And Pitino's coaching somewhere else.
And right. Pitino's at Iona College.
Right.
You know, now in Auburn, they did a self-imposed ban on themselves, mm-hmm. decided not to play in the postseason play that year. They, I think, gave up 5 scholarships. And I'm not going to blame them for what happened. I think it was a overreaction. And I understand, but you just think about everything that went on from that, and now it's a big nothing burger.
Right.
So what about the people whose lives were ruined? Are you going to put it back together?
You can't.
Can they have some legal recourse against the NCAA, which is a toothless tiger now, and yes. all the stuff they complained about? Well, hey, you can just go out and do it now.
Do they have any legal recourse? I think it's a question.
Right. Yes. They definitely should have some legal recourse. I mean, that's Michael mentioned. Those people's lives have been ruined.
Be more specific and say, does Chuck have any legal recourse?
And that's what I really meant when I said, do they have some legal recourse?
Because maybe he didn't have to be fired.
Right. He was suspended for what? Almost 2 years or so before he was even actually, well, maybe not that long, but they suspended him without pay, which is basically essentially firing him anyway. But then make the decision later on to actually fire him.
And I'll say this, Auburn has done very well in basketball.
Mm-hmm.
They've been able to recruit some top athletes as we've seen. But that started with Chuck.
Yes, it did.
And so I don't know. We'll see what's next. But that's a great point you bring up, Michael.
Right.
That
we talked about them, and then there was also players that careers may have been affected by this. Austin Wiley and Daniel Purifoy. Both of those they were forced to sit out for an entire season. Yes. And didn't get a chance to play. So, I know Dangel is overseas, or I think playing right now. I'm not even sure where Austin is right now, but I'm sure that probably had an impact on their careers as well.
And one other point in this article, they talked about this guy named Sonny Varaco, who was the first to sign college coaches to shoe deals in the 70s when he worked with Nike.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And he says they targeted the likes of John Thompson and Jerry Tarkanian because they were big deal coaches whose teams were playing well in the Final Four. And it was through that partnership and the countless relationships with players that resulted from it, Nike gained a foothold in the sport. So they were only doing what Nike had done already to show as a formula for success.
Right.
And I understand it, because if you have a star player wearing your shoes, then you're selling shoes to the other players that want to be like that star player.
Mm-hmm.
And go ahead.
Well, and so the compensation was advertised for us. It's almost like doing a commercial. We're paying you to do a commercial. You're just wearing our brand. It wasn't to try to give Louisville a leg up. It was promoting their shoes. And that's just what Nike had done.
It's interesting. Well, and, it's interesting, too, that there was always this emphasis on not giving players any money.
Mm-hmm.
And today we have the NIL. So there were a lot of players who were essentially banned from the game.
Yes.
And we can go back and look at the Reggie Bush situation.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever was giving Reggie Bush's mama house and all that stuff was because of his name, image, and likeness. That's why they were doing it.
Right.
So it's interesting. I don't know where we're going. I don't think anybody knows where major college sports are going. But it seems to be going in a direction that people used to be punished for.
Right.
So that's an interesting thing. So I want to talk about the new coach, but I'm going to save that one for our guest, because our guest is all things Auburn. Mm-hmm. And so unless you guys got something else, I want to move over to our G-list guest.
Thom, can I just mention one thing? I want to congratulate Dusty Baker and the Houston Astros World Series champions. Mr. Baker isn't just the oldest World Series winning manager. He's the oldest manager or head coach in Major League Baseball, the NBA, NFL, or NHL history to win a championship. So congratulations
it was
to
great
Mr. Baker.
To see him win that. I remember when he played for the Dodgers, and it's been around for a while.
Yes,
so that
he
was
has.
great. It was great. So let's move on, and we'll have time to explore some more of these issues on the other side. So let's go to Sean and see if Sean's got a minute for us. Sean.
Good morning. My name is Shantia Jones, and this is Got a Minute. Hello to everyone joining in with us this morning. I hope you all are well and remaining safe. Guess what today is? I mean, outside of it being the 8th of November, well, it's election day. On this day, citizens cast ballots to select public officials from local to national government. Fun facts. Presidential elections are held every 4 years, and years divisible by 4. Elections to the United States House of Representatives and the United States Senate are held every 2 years. Local officials can be voted into office any year that is designated by the state. Get out there and cast your vote. Now, before I go, Veterans Day is this Friday, November 11th, and I'd like to say Happy Veterans Day to all of the veterans that have or currently serve this country. Veterans Day is a time for us to pay our respects to those who have served. For one day, we stand united in respect for you, our veterans. Thank you all for joining in. My name is Shantia Jones, and this is Got a Minute.
Thank you, Sean. Well, she said we stand united. We need to stand united on something.
Yes.
So let's go to the G list. The G list. Hollywood's got the A list, and on Tuesdays with Thom, we got the G list. Our G list guest today is Ike Jones of the War Report. Ike it's a sports talk show that's dubbed as an Auburn Sports Talk from the fans' perspective. The War Rapport was created to be for the people who truly love Auburn sports. It's inclusive, interactive, and made to bring fans of all kinds to the table for a discussion. So let's bring on Ike and the War Report. Ike Jones. Ike, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you, man?
I'm doing well, doing well. Glad to be here.
Well, good, good. So let's just jump right into it and tell me who's the next Auburn coach.
Oh, wow. If I had the power to do that, we'd be having a whole different kind of conversations going on around here. I don't know who it's going to be, but I do think, I'm going to take the same approach as the current interim coach and say we're going to take it a day at a time and just handle what's right in front of us. I'm hoping that we just put a good game on the field Saturday against Texas A&M and let the chips fall where they may. But I think Auburn's got a tremendous opportunity right now to shape the future of the program. And so hopefully Cohen, who is the new athletic director, along with Roberts, the president right now, takes some diligence in making this decision and takes us in the right direction for the program.
Well, one thing about recruiting from this standpoint is kids can look, they know it's a good program, but they also know they can come in and play right away.
For sure.
They come in and play first game, they can be a starter on the field. So that is a plus in a lot of ways. So I'm going to go to Barbara and Michael and see what Barbara, what you got for Ike?
Good morning, Ike. How are you this morning?
I'm doing well, doing well.
I want to just ask you, how did the War Report get started? Tell us about the whole process of who's involved. Tell us a little bit more about the War Report.
Yeah, so it's myself and three of my friends who all attended Auburn University. I've known those guys for over 20 years now, and essentially I myself and Mike Gittens, who is the guy who kind of co-founded it with me. We hadn't seen each other since college, sitting around at a friend's house one day, just randomly ran into each other. So he doesn't live in Birmingham. We were in Birmingham for the Magic City Classic stuff. So he came into town visiting another mutual friend of ours. And we both ended up at someone else's house, just kind of hanging out after the game. Didn't know he was in town. He walked into ours like, oh man, I hadn't seen him in a long time. We started talking about the, football, because that's what we talk about, talking about football. Mm-hmm. And he started describing his game day ritual, which was he would call Caesar, who is one of the other guys on the show, before every game and ask him, hey man, how do you think the team is going to play? And then they would call each other at halftime and be like, what did you think of the first half? And they would call each other after the game and talk for hours about, hey, complaining about something or celebrating whatever happened. I was like, yo, that's the exact same thing me and my friend Brian do. Like same thing, pregame, halftime, postgame. And so I was like, we should just get on camera and do that exact same thing. We should just get on camera and do our pregame, halftime, postgame ritual and see who wants to join in from the fan base. And we did it a couple of years ago, 3 or 4 people, a couple of games later, 15, 20 people. Now, a couple of years later, we've got on average 300 to 400 people tuning in every game, sitting there listening to us run our mouth about whatever we want to talk about. So it's been fun.
That's great. That's great. Well, I've had a chance to catch a couple of those, and they have been great shows. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, it seems like you've evolved, and let me just say congratulations on your accomplishment and what's going on. Tell me, when you're moving forward with after the game, whether it's football, basketball, or what have you, I noticed you've had a lot of guests that come in. Mm-hmm. How have you decided on who to bring in and how?
Yeah, that's been an interesting evolution of so it started with the game day experience, and then we started doing weekly lives on Sundays and Wednesdays, doing a preview and then a recap. And then we decided that we wanted to reach out again because we all attended school there. Mike actually worked in the film room. He was filming practices and games for the football team, a little bit for baseball as well. So he was reaching out through those channels to athletes that he was familiar with from his time there. So we decided first to just start with former players that we knew, to get them to come on and just give their thoughts about their time playing, to get a little nostalgia from the fans of the team, and then as well just kind of their thoughts on where they felt like the program was currently. Since then, it's evolved. It's a series we do called Building Rapport, and I just really look for people who have significance in Auburn history. And we do current players now as well. NIL has opened that opportunity for us to be able to speak with current players. But just looking for people who have significant voices, whether it be from a historic standpoint in Auburn history, or from just a nostalgia point for fans. Like they might necessarily be in the record books, but they have some sort of connection with the fan base to be able to give a unique perspective of what's going on with Auburn athletics.
So, Ike, let me ask you: have you voted?
I haven't yet, but I intend to go. I actually, I used to work in politics before I got into all of this, so I am very much politically activated. So it's been, but I am headed as soon as we're done here. That's my next stop, is to head to the.
You decided talking about sports was better than talking about politics.
It's not necessarily better. I actually, so I mean, if we're talking about evolutions, I do intend to one day try to figure out a way to get back into some political talk and punditry. I'm probably not going to be doing any more of the campaign life. But I do think it's important to talk about those issues, even if they aren't easy issues to have conversations around, because they're necessary conversations. So at some point in time, I do intend to branch out of just being a sports commentator or whatever people want to term it is right now, and get into some more political punditry in the future. So, but yeah, I intend to vote here in just a little bit, and am very committed to that.
Thank you for that, for voting. Let me ask you one question here. So you got Dion Harsin and Cadillac.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see as their individual strengths, and what do you see as their individual things that they could do better or they need to work on?
So I'll start. I mean, you said Harsin. I don't know if you. So I'll start with the one who is no longer there. I think Coach Brian Harsin is a guy who is fiercely committed to a style, right? And he was what the team needed in transition from Gus Malzahn, in the terms of trying to get some more structure around the program and trying to find people who were committed to just, I think he found players who were willing to play hard. The problem was he wasn't able to motivate them to get the best effort, and he probably needed to work through his team a little bit better in as far as delegation and helping not just the players, but the coaches around him be more successful so that the team overall could be successful. So I think he had some really good ideas, but his implementation of those ideas probably was a little poor. And then from a recruiting prowess and standpoint, I don't think he had the right urgency necessary to be able to be effective in a short term at a school like Auburn University. So that was his ultimate undoing. It's just his process didn't match up with the speed of what it is to be an SEC or even a top Power 5 coach. When you talk about the current interim coach and Coach Lack, I think the thing that he does best is his ability to motivate and galvanize, right? So you have the talent, you have the people who are willing to work hard. Now you need to motivate them to put that best effort forward. So I think that's the thing that he's done the absolute best so far in, a very short stint. It's just motivating people to do what they do really well. Again, that goes for players and coaches. I think he's allowed them and empowered them in a way that the previous coach wasn't able to. And he's brought the fan base into a place of just being hopeful again about the product that they're going to see from Auburn football. When you talk about Coach Prime, Deion Sanders is just an electric figure. So he's going to be able to bring a brand recognition that exists outside of the Auburn brand. The Auburn brand is strong, but I don't think that from a standpoint of being able to get young athletes who are not connected to Auburn, right? Like there's a lot of players. I mean, you know this well from just the time that you've been with Auburn athletes. There's a lot of guys who come to Auburn who don't really understand what Auburn is and what the family atmosphere, all that kind of stuff. They're coming to play football, right? And they come here and they grow to love all of that other stuff. In order to get some of those guys who would never even give Auburn a second look down to your program, you need a figure like Deion Sanders to do that. You need somebody, until you put a winning pedigree together, you have to have somebody who can just connect with people. Though Coach Cadillac does that really well, he doesn't have the same brand that Deion Sanders does. And then Deion Sanders is a good CEO type of person who can be able to put the right people in the right places as well. He's fiercely committed to winning. So it's going to be interesting to see which direction people decide to go with who the next football coach is going to be.
That's a great answer. Thank you. Barbara, Michael, one of you guys got a question?
Go ahead, Michael.
Well, while we're talking about that, Ike, I had a discussion with Thom, and you can tell me how you feel about this. My position is that the timing is right for Auburn to make the right hire.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that, Nick Saban is on his last years.
Mm-hmm.
You can see that he's limping to the finish line. And I feel, I'm of the opinion that if Auburn gets this right, we can become the dominant force in Alabama and then start to go toe-to-toe with Georgia. But what we got to have is we got to have the right coach that can come in there and stop all those 5 stars from going to Georgia and going to Alabama and start them to come back here.
Yeah.
And then build from there. But my position is, if I'm President Roberts or the athletic director Cohen, I'm going to recognize that, and I'm going to plan from a strategic standpoint to overtake Alabama right now and get back on top.
Yeah, no, I agree that it's a critical point right now because quiet as it's kept, LSU made a major play bringing Brian Kelly into the league. Lane Kiffin is building something at Ole Miss, so you don't have the time. And I think that was the thing about the Harsin thing is a lot of people felt like we don't have time to figure this out because we're falling further behind the more that we prolong this situation and not moving in the direction that we need to. So it's going to be critical figuring out who this next hire is going to be because, as you said, now is the time to start trying to build your war chest, so to speak, so that you're able to make a push and gain ground on the likes of Georgia, because Kirby Smart doesn't seem like that Georgia program is going anywhere anytime soon. Right. And to your point, Nick Saban is on the twilight properly of his career. So you have to figure out while there's going to be, what they call power vacuums. I don't know why I'm using a lot of war terminology right now, but
it's the war report.
Yeah. But when a power vacuum exists, someone has to step in and take over the space that's left. I'm sure there are people at the University of Alabama who are trying to figure out, can they have some succession of power? But now's a good time to start trying to make your inroads so that you can be able to capture whatever space is necessary. So I agree 100% with that.
If you look back, I mean, look at who the last 3 coaches were: Chizik, Malzahn, and Harsin. Mm-hmm. None of them were big-time coaches when they were hired.
Right.
Right. All of them were who?
Yeah. Right. Right.
Who? The only one I'd heard of was Malzahn, simply because he was there as the offensive coordinator. And he was running the fast offense and made a name for himself, which he then got away from. And I don't need to go much further. I'll let Michael talk about Malzahn. Okay, Michael, Barbara, you guys go. I just think if you look at Chizik, Harsin, Malzahn, and you guys talked about there's a void there, and I agree with you 100%. Well, between after those 3, Coach Prime's got a bigger name. He's done more in that short time of being in Jackson State. Yes. And hey, man, when you get the #1 prospect in the country,
right,
you're doing something right, and you get them to go to an HBCU.
Right,
man, that's pretty strong.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Yes. I want to ask you about Auburn's next opponent, Texas A&M. What are your thoughts about their team, their coaching staff? What's Auburn's chances?
Texas A&M has been inconsistent the entire year. They've got a good defense, but they don't play defense well consistently. I mean, honestly, they're a lot like Auburn in the fact that a ton of talent, but talent that hasn't really reached their potential for the totality of any football game this season. Mm-hmm. So the issues that you're going to have with Auburn versus Texas A&M is Auburn hasn't been good against the run so far this year, and Texas A&M has one of the best running backs in the country in Devin A. Chain. So I think that figuring out how to be better against the run is going to be pivotal in this game. But and Mississippi State you don't really know what you have there because Mississippi State's not going to run the ball a lot. So even though the defense played well, especially in being able to rush the passer a little bit better, had 5 sacks in that game. I don't know that translates to Texas A&M if you can't stop the run well.
Right.
But conversely, again, Texas A&M has been inconsistent defensively. So if Auburn can get the run game going like they did second half against Mississippi State, which I think is completely possible, you can put yourself in a position where Texas A&M is going to have to throw the ball more, which then mean you can get your pass rush going again. So it's really going to be Auburn's got to start better. That's the bottom line. You have to start the game better and put yourself in a position where the other team is on their heels. Texas A&M has allowed teams to do that to them this year. Auburn shouldn't be any different to be able to do that, but it's going to be the offense getting a good start and then the defense playing well against the run that's going to allow them to be successful.
Well, we start well on offense on our opening drive. We drive it down there, but then we bog down and kick a field goal.
Yeah.
Don't get any points.
You got to get points like that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
moving the ball is great. I was talking with a guy who comes on our podcast a little bit, and he's like, I wonder if there is a statistic around a team who has the most yards from scrimmage but the least amount of points, and I guarantee you Auburn would be high in that category because we've moved the ball well every game. We just haven't scored touchdowns. And I mean, there was a point in time where Javarius Johnson, the wide receiver, was top 5. I mean, this is first 4 games of the season, but like top 5 in the conference in yards from scrimmage, but hadn't scored a single touchdown. Like he had 2 or 3 plays where he was down inside the 5-yard line on long plays. It's just we have not been scoring touchdowns with any level of proficiency, and then the kicking game has been erratic, right?
Yes.
So putting points on the board has not been an easy thing so far for Auburn.
Okay.
Well, I got to kind of go back to the previous conversation. You know, I kind of like to play mind games with people and stuff. Okay. And Thom and Barbara know that. They know me very well. You don't. Yes. This past weekend, I was in Athens over there. And, you know, I'm standing in line and, you know, everybody, if you have a certain stature, everybody think you played football or they want to talk football to you. So this guy turns around and said, "Do you think we ready?" And I looked at him and I said, "I really don't care. I'm an Auburn grad." And I do that for the shock value. And so then he looks at me and said, "Well, what are you doing here? You looking for a coach?" I said, "No, we don't want Kirby. We bringing in Dion." Right. And the look on their face. And whenever I mention that name to Georgia fans or the Alabama fans, that look on their face is like, "Oh, crap."
Oh, yeah, they're afraid.
They are afraid. And that's a good way of judging who you may want to go after when you throw something out at your biggest rivals, because they will let you know what their thought process is on that. Yeah. And when I did that, I was talking to some younger guys and they said, "If y'all do that, y'all will be getting all the 5 stars."
Yeah.
Everyone knows that. Yes.
Yeah. There's a lot of recruits who said just that like they'll come to Auburn tomorrow if Dion was the head coach.
Yes.
So what do you, I mean, they tell me this and I assume it's true. I'm the oldest living Black athlete from Auburn University. So to the 3 of you, what do you think the real possibility is of that, knowing Auburn University?
I think Auburn is in a place, and we talked about the critical juncture point that we're in right now, where they want to win. I am certain that the new athletic director is more progressive than most of the athletic directors have been prior to him. So the conversation's being had in earnest right now. Like, I think that they're actually having real conversations about the possibility of it. The question is, can they make it work from a PR standpoint, right? Can they sell it to the boosters? Can they sell it to the Auburn fan base as something that's a necessity? Because people are going to swear he doesn't have enough experience, he can't do it. But to your point, how much experience in the Power 5 did Brian Harsin, Gus Malzahn, Gene Chizik have before they got here?
Right.
Almost none. They had been coordinators, but that's it. None of them had been head. I mean, Malzahn had been a head coach, but Arkansas State. I mean, come on,
Right.
like, what are we talking about? Like, are we having a real conversation about head coaching experience at Arkansas State versus Jackson State? It's not a real thing. Like, let's
Right.
just throw that out the window. So probability right now, I wouldn't put it super high, because I don't think he's their first choice. But if they get past choice 1 and 2, I think he's going to get a really serious consideration. And I do think that conversations have already been had through back channels to try to gauge interest.
Well, I think that's the thing too. I think that everybody's overlooked. Would he be willing to come?
I think that's actually the bigger thing is would he want to come and coach at Auburn, not necessarily would Auburn want him.
Auburn's got a reputation for fine coaches, and it would be a pressure cooker. The expectations would be higher than they were for Chizik, for Malzahn, for Harsin. That's just the way America works right now, and has worked all my life. So I think we've got to flip that question and say, does he want to leave where he's comfortable?
Right.
And we all went to Auburn. And so you know the difference between if, in fact, you had attended an HBCU, how your life would have been different than attending Auburn University.
Right.
So I think we've got to look at it from that perspective.
The only thing is I don't see Deion shying away from a challenge. You know, I don't think the pressure cookers environment is something that would scare him at all. I think he would be up for that. Now, again, it may be ugly from a public standpoint, but I don't think he would be afraid of that.
Yeah, I don't think the pressure is a problem for Coach Prime. I think, and this is something I've said on my show in regard to this conversation because it comes up often, is the message he has been preaching in order to secure recruits is that you can be successful going to an HBCU. You don't have to go to a Power 5 to be successful. That doesn't validate you as a player. Does it invalidate his message if he then goes and coaches at a Power 5? That's the only, you know, I don't know that it invalidates it for those athletes that have already seen that success. But how does that help what his initial mission was, which is to improve, the SWAC conference or the HBCUs overall? If he then goes and coaches at a Power 5 conference, I don't know whether or not he wrestles with that at all, or if he's saying to himself, this can't be about what Deion does for the HBCUs. You guys, I got this started. You guys need to figure out how to keep it going. So again, I think it's more about the messaging and what the PR around it is going to be, whether or not it can be successful for him and his personal brand going forward, and whether or not it'll be perceived the right way by athletes afterwards.
And I think if he makes that move, then that move he may be more comfortable making that type of move to Florida State, where he played, where he has connections, where he knows all the back channel talking that goes on.
Florida State did him kind of dirty after he stole that recruit from him, though. I don't know how he's feeling about Florida State right now. They weren't too kind.
Right, they were not.
There's some mending that needs to happen there, I think, with that relationship before he's ready to go to Florida State. But I do think that is a conversation that is being had, as well as, like, if we do get Coach Prime to come to Auburn, how long is he coming to Auburn University, right? And so is he a Band-Aid to be able to bridge us to another place, get the ball rolling, and then you hand it off to someone who's a better long-term fit? Listen, I am an advocate of the idea that if you bring Coach Prime in as your coach for 2 to 3 years and you groom a Cadillac to be the next coach, then it's just a handoff of an already moving situation. You have Cadillac there, who's a young, still young at that point, 2 or 3 years later, but now has more experience in maybe an assistant coaching seat, and is able to get more acclimated with the idea of being a head coach from his interim status right now, and then whatever responsibilities he have going forward. And then Auburn can be, it's a relay race at that point in time. You got somebody who's a good starter, and then you hand it over to, who's eventually going to be your final leg guy to take you to the next base. So that could be a solution as well.
Quick comment.
Okay.
You've got somebody who wants to know when you were at Auburn.
I started down there in 99 and left in 2003.
Okay. We got time for one quick question before we got to get out of here.
Well, I wanted to kind of piggyback off of what you were saying about Dion and Ike and talk about this experience thing. I like to remind people that Vince Dooley was only 35 years old when he became head coach of Georgia.
Mhm.
And he did not have any experience. He was an assistant coach at Auburn.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing regarding to him, would he leave JSU and what he's doing for HBCUs? I read an article where they said he could do even more for HBCUs at Auburn, where he could get Auburn people to schedule games with the likes
Right.
of JSU and other HBCUs and pay them the $1 million for the payday, which would more than help out what they're doing with their overall budget. Do you not see that that could be a platform that would help him with his legacy and what he's gotten started at HBCUs?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that as well. They're going to have to, but see, here's the only problem I see is Dion would then be arguing against himself, right? Like it's the same thing that I said before, because the reason why he said he hadn't scheduled Jackson State to play against a Power 5 school or specifically an SEC school like Alabama is he's like, I'm not going to bring my boys up there and let them get slaughtered by them. We're not ready for that.
Yeah.
Right. And so now he's going to have to be the person inviting the slaughter in. Right. And so I agree that you can definitely do that. And they should. If there's a school that wants to, Alabama State played Auburn last year. Right. So it's not as if there aren't schools that want to be able to prove, man, we can play with whoever. They got beat 63-3, but, it doesn't matter. They still got the payday and they were able to get those athletes into a primetime slot as far as being able to play against high caliber teams. So 100% he could do that. And I think that if he's in that position, he should strongly advocate for it.
Well, only thing about it, at this time, they might beat us. Anyway, thanks, Ike. It's always good to talk to you, man.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it.
I love the back and forth, and when I was on your show and today, and hopefully we'll stay in touch and continue to have conversations.
I look forward to it.
Wish you the best. So let me move on and do my closing commentaries because it's about time for us to get out. So thank you. My closing commentary, or as I see it, and again, vote. Remember the vote, please. The forgotten ones is what they're being called. And just who are the forgotten ones? They are the 1970s Auburn University Black athletic trailblazers. The Black athletes who migrated to Auburn University in those early days of Auburn athletic integration. Those trailblazers have agreed to return to campus in honor, celebration, and support of the James Owens Foundation. Owens was Auburn's first Black football athlete, and he's known as Daddy to many of the 70 athletes who followed him. The celebration will include former male athletes from football, track, basketball, and baseball, and women athletes from basketball, track and field, and volleyball. Also in attendance will be several members of the university's Board of Trustees, representation from the university's Office of the President. The event will take place at a breakfast on campus. It is a second breakfast event for the forgotten ones, with the first being held 2 years ago when nearly 12 to 15 of the former athletes returned, many for the first time, since they left some 40 years ago. For this year's event, as many as 50 of the former athletes have signed up, with as many as 25 expected to attend. Many of those former athletes will be there for the first time on campus since they left nearly 50 years ago. It will be a time of reflection, celebration, and renewed commitment to the university's overall athletic mission. It should be a blast. I'm looking forward to it. And that is how I see it on this November 8th in the year 2022. That's our show for today. I want to thank the audience. We appreciate you. Thank Michael Barber. Thank our G-list guest, Ike Jones from the War Report. And thank our sponsor, Best Girl. Thank Emily Hedrick, Sean Jones. And remember, vote. Go vote. Enjoy yourself. Make every day count. Stay safe. Peace.